Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the stream. I am a logical lefty, Jeff Waldorf, and I've got some very interesting stories today. So why don't I get to breaking down what I'm going to talk about today? We have a predictable betrayal. We got Trump voters feeling a little betrayed after ICE took their son. See, is not why I'm this is why I took a few extra minutes, because I've got like the hiccups, so I apologize for that. Excuse me. Trying to drink water too. Okay, but anyway, we also have Florida's plans to See, I'm just having a terrible hiccup day. All right. I know, this is great. We've got Florida's plan to replace migrant labor, and it's falling apart. Absolutely. So, absolute disaster for them, which is great. We also have an intelligence memo that contradicts Donald Trump's claims about the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, or however you say that. Excuse me. God damn it. These hiccups are gonna just make things super awkward. Gotta love it. So we've got that. Oh, that's great. Oklahoma is attempting to teach Donald Trump's election conspiracy theories as facts. Absolutely disastrous there. Then we have a black DoorDasher that was shot in the back by a city official. Disastrous. Okay. These freaking hiccups, man. What a disaster. Speaking of that. All right, water, do your thing. Okay. But anyway, welcome to the show. I hope I don't have to edit out a bunch of that, because that's going to be a pain in the ass. But anyway, hey, if you want to support the show, you can support us by going to our Patreon page or becoming a channel member. I'm just a mess today, apparently. So I'm kind of like, if you think about it, kind of like America today, you know, just a mess, just an absolute disaster. So drink water upside down. I will not be doing that. Seriously, like, head rush. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so some of the channel members here, or I should say patrons, over on Patreon, that I want to thank for supporting. I'm sorry, not Patreon. This is on the channel membership, so I was originally right. No Name. Thank you for becoming a supporter, joining us. Appreciate that. Pascal Filthe, I'm not sure if I'm saying that name correctly, but thank you for being a member as well. Toby Dandelion, and I already thanked Boulder Crypto Sissy Dragon yesterday. So all that stuff. Okay, so now I'm just, you know what I'm gonna do though? I am going to suffer through the hiccups, and that's just what's got to happen. Okay. And just right before I go on the air, hiccup. So that's awesome. But you know what? The show, it must go on.
We'll do it live.
I'm gonna do it live. Okay. All right. So we'll start with the predictable betrayal. That sounds horrific. Okay? Drinking pickle juice, that sounds terrible. And I'm not a huge fan of pickles, though. Probably why. Two Trump voting immigrants are feeling a little betrayed after ICE detained their son. So this is Argentine-American couple Martin Verdet and Deborah Ray. They were speaking to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and said that they feel let down by the Trump administration after their son, Augustin Gentile, 31, a green card holder, was sent to the Stewart Detention Center in South Georgia. Why? I mean, this young man is legally here on a green card, which equates to having lawful permanent residency. Okay? But they do not care. The Trump administration is targeting illegal residents because they don't want immigrants in this country. And Trump was pretty open about that during his entire campaign. Okay. Now, that said, Deborah Ray told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that she was just shocked and chagrined. Like, oh my God, I cannot believe the leopards ate my face. Trump didn't say he was going to do this, she said. That he was going to go after the people who have been here for a long time. He said he was going to go after all the criminals who came illegally. We feel betrayed. This is craziness. Yes, that's right. This was a massive deception, what he did, because the other side had shown us how indulgent they were. Yeah, okay, and there it is. Okay. You can tell from their answers that they watched nothing more than Fox News and right-wing media. Because no one who has actually paid any attention to the reality of the situation believed that Joe Biden was indulgent with immigration. I mean, seriously, Biden had pushed an executive order reducing the number of asylum seekers that could enter the country because Donald Trump told Republicans not to pass a very restrictive immigration bill. Why? So he could run on Joe Biden being weak on the border. And guess what? It worked. It worked like a charm. Like extremely effective. Okay? And that is despite the fact that Joe Biden and Barack Obama actually have deported more people than Donald Trump. Seriously. Over 4.6 million people were removed from the U.S. between January 2021 and November of 2024, according to government data, with March 2022 seeing the highest number of people leaving at 147,080. So compare that to President Donald Trump, who during his first term removed 2.1 million people. That is the highest monthly total, actually, that came in October of 2020, where he removed 91,120 immigrants. Now, compare that to Obama. Across his two terms, President Barack Obama oversaw 5.3 million people removed from the country. Monthly data is not available for those first 5 years of Obama's time in office, but his first year in 2009 actually did see the largest total of the entire 8 years at 973,937 removals. There is a reason that we call Obama the deporter and chief. Okay? In Trump's mind, he knows that he's never going to be able to measure up to Barack Obama. Okay? And that will always be an incredibly sore spot for him. Okay? He'll just, he knows. He knows. He's deeply jealous of Obama. Okay? Now, that said, getting back to Gentile. Now, he's a father of two, and he was stopped by officials in February after returning from a trip abroad and landing at the LA International Airport. DHS officials confiscated his green card and his Argentine passport and directed him to report to a Customs and Border Protection office in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he lives. Officials there then detained him and sent him to a local county jail. He was then transferred to Stewart Detention Center, which is, by the way, ran by CoreCivic, which is a private prison. So now the question is, wait, what happened? Why did they just take this guy? Well, turns out that Gentile was convicted in 2020 of something called infliction of injury. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation, according to court records seen by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. His case, however, was closed in 2023 because he had served his time. Okay, he was no longer on probation because the probation period had ended with him not committing further crimes. And so, there you go. So, look, apparently that is not good enough, though. Okay, the fact that he had served his time and did his probation and didn't commit any further crimes. Apparently now, though, the Trump administration looks at that and says, well, you are a dangerous, terroristic criminal. And now we must send you back to a country that you haven't been, lived in since you were a toddler. Okay, that's when he came here to the United States. So they closed his case, and now, because of Trump, they're coming around to punish him again in a very cruel and unusual way. Okay, so that's one of the problems here. That said, this is what they voted for. He kept saying, Trump did, I'm going to deport the criminal aliens. And then what he did is decided to designate everyone who was an immigrant as being a criminal. And that's it. That's what he's doing. I mean, look, and by the way, it's not just all of what he's doing, it's part of what he's doing, because he's actually doing worse. He's sending American citizens to a foreign gulag on phony charges without, giving them due process. He's also sending people who've never committed a crime, innocent people. So, that's what Trump's doing. That's what ICE is doing. Okay. And look, this family is not only a victim of Donald Trump, obviously, but also of massive propaganda, as well as their own bad life choices in believing said propaganda. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, what else can you say? They didn't think the leopards were going to eat their face. And look, that's what happened. Yeah, that's it. The leopards ate very, very well and will continue to eat very, very well because, once again, these people voted to screw other, over other people. That's what they voted for. I want you to screw over those people. Oh no, they're screwing me over. Oh, how could this have happened? Oh no. Well, that's what always happens when you screw over other people. It usually comes back to you. And this is exactly what happened here. You know the old saying, F around and find out. Okay. Okay. Bad news for Florida's Ron DeSantis. A bill that he championed, which would have loosened child labor laws in Florida, has died in the state Senate. Oops. Now, the bill would have permitted 16 and 17-year-olds to work overnight on school days and work longer than an 8-hour day before a school day. So now the bill would also allow some 14 and 15-year-olds being allowed to work those hours. Gee, I wonder if it would have been poor people that were going to end up working in these jobs. Very likely, yes. Now, the proposal was touted by DeSantis as a way to use teenagers, kids, as a replacement for undocumented workers that have either voluntarily left the state or have been detained or deported by ICE. Now, the bill would also scrap the required 30-minute meal breaks and allow children as young as 14 who are homeschooled or enrolled in virtual school to work overnight shifts. Hey, you kids with your growing minds and bodies, you don't need no lunch break. Really? Are you sure about that?
Really?
It's not a salami sandwich. It's a viable baby in the womb.
I don't know why I played that, but we're talking about sandwiches here. We're talking about lunch breaks. Now, proponents of the bill said, well, hey, look, we need to get the kids out to the fields, okay? Because we have a labor shortage. Can't have that. Yes, but again, it's only going to be the poor kids that they're going to send into the fields. So, but you know, those proponents are like, well, ain't going to be my kids. We're rich, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, well, whatever. Hey, if they're exploited, oh well, welcome to capitalism. Now, thankfully, this did not work, okay? There was enough people that were like, I don't know about this, all right? Probably not a good idea, okay? Kids should be in school. They should be allowed to be kids. We literally work the entirety of our lives. So you know what? Kids should be able to enjoy those years where we're not required to slave away in the fields. Okay? Now, the Guardian quoted Alexis Tsoukalis, a senior policy analyst at an independent research group, the Florida Policy Institute, as saying about this, quote, it's essentially treating teens who have developing bodies and minds like adults. And this will allow employers to schedule them for unlimited hours, overnight and without breaks. And this is during the school year. Yeah, that he correctly explained the bill. Florida's Immigrant Coalition spokesperson, Thomas Kennedy, said that this is basically a form of exploiting minors, which is absolutely something the Republican Party loves to do. I mean, if it's not exploitation, is it really a Republican plan? Now, here's what he said. We've been saying since 2023 that this is a way for them to exploit minors. It was when they passed this large anti-immigrant omnibus, and the same year that they tried to pass this first law gutting child labor protection. The only short-term answer to workforce shortages has always been net migration. And they'll never go for that because of their politics. So their only answer is to widen the parameters of who can work. And you either go older or you go younger. And they chose to go younger. Look, I'm one of those weird people that thinks that maybe a life should be about more than just making money for rich people. You know, maybe life, weird, I know, life should be enjoyed. And we shouldn't always constantly be hustling and grinding just to frickin' survive. Barely. But I don't know, I'm a weirdo. Apparently I'm like some sort of weird socialist, you know, communist, whatever. Okay. Wait.
Pink-haired communist.
That's it. That's it. I must be. Okay. Look, this is one of the reasons I'm against this, okay? I like people to live their lives. I want kids to be able to get an education so that they can actually have good jobs in the future. Okay. That said, this bill had been approved by the Florida House back in April, largely along party lines. Okay. And I remember reporting about that when that happened. Now, again, it failed in the Senate, which is great. In fact, here's first, let me give you a quote here from Republican State Senator Jay Collins, who was the sponsor of the bill. He said that the measure was about parental rights. Oh, yeah, parental rights, sure. He said we should let them say what's best for their kids at 16 to 17-year-olds. That's what we're saying by this. No, because this actually doesn't expand parental rights at all. What it does is that it expands employers' rights. That's right, to underpay their workers. I mean, what happens if that family that relies on this extra income, from their 16, 17-year-old kid working, and the employer starts saying, well, hey, look, you're going to need to start working more overnights. Well, okay, but I got to go to school tomorrow. And yes, I do need the money, but I also need to get an education so that I can do something better than just working at this particular job, right? Which is likely going to be, a fast food job, service industry stuff. I would like to get a better job. Well, that employer can say, well, you got to come in or else you're not going to have a job. Well, again, if your family does rely on some of that income, as some do, well, then you're not going to really be in a position to say no. Okay. And that's one of the problems. There's so much potential here for exploitation. And that's not even saying that, or addressing the fact that exploitation has been here the whole time. I mean, undocumented workers were the ones being exploited before. Okay. So, I mean, for example, hey, if you work overnight or do this thing without without this particular safety gear that would cost me more money to actually acquire. So, you don't need it. Go ahead and just fix this thing, do this machine, whatever, without the safety gear, or else we're going to tell ICE. Okay. We're going to report you. Now, that is technically illegal for employers to do, but they get away with it all the time. And now with Donald Trump just deporting people freaking willy-nilly, there's even more room for exploitation of fear, okay? Look, here's the thing. One of the big reasons that undocumented labor has been so prevalent in the workforce is that Americans just don't want to do the jobs. Why? I mean, those jobs suck. That's why there's a labor shortage. It's hot, dirty work. There's no benefits, and the pay is not really all that good. Okay, I know personally, I have picked strawberries as a kid, okay? As a teenager, I should say. So, and let me tell you, it is not good work. It is not easy work. It is difficult. There are quotas that you have to fill, and I worked right alongside what were likely undocumented workers. So I know that they were doing it. And, I was right there, right alongside them, and they were fast, much faster than me. Okay. But here's the thing. When I went to pick up my check, I noticed, and it stuck with me for all these years, I noticed the way that the owner had talked about these workers. And it was bad. Calling the people that I worked alongside that were faster than me lazy. Yeah. And I remember hearing another person who was in that room saying something along the lines of, well, that's what you get for hiring those people. Those people. So, yeah, let me just say this.
The Republican Party's racist.
Okay. Instead of helping those workers to not be exploited, Ron DeSantis was just like, well, you know what? Let's just make the kids do it. Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll work out great. Because understand that these people are all about needing to exploit someone. If not the immigrants, then it's your kids. If not the kids, it's the minorities. If not the minorities, the elderly. Eventually, they go down the list and get everyone else to do the work except for the wealthy. So there you go. Oh, wow. I think my hiccups went away. Hooray! That's going to make a couple of awkward segments on YouTube. The owner who has the money, who pays other people to do the work, probably never leaves the air-conditioned tractor/office, calling other people lazy. Yeah, that checks out for management. The Republican answer is close those schools and put those kids to work. Yeah, well, that's part of their answer, but I'm going to get to Oklahoma here. And after this next story, Oklahoma has got their own plans for the kids. And it ain't good. Okay. But first, we'll get to the lack of intelligence here. All right. President Donald Trump and his administration continue to make the false claim that foreign governments they're sending the gangs and the criminals, they're emptying out the prisons and sending the prisoners to the United States as some sort of invasion force or something to undermine the U.S. government. However, according to a newly declassified U.S. intelligence assessment, there's no evidence of this. Of course, their response to this is always going to be,
Just forget about the evidence.
just trust us, bro. We know what's going on. Shocker, right? Wait, you mean they're not emptying out the prisons and shipping the prisoners here? Nope. Insane conspiracy theory, which I'm pretty sure has been cooked up from the bowels of Stormfront. Okay? Yes, the racists over at Stormfront. Okay? Along with the Great Replacement theory. Okay. Nonetheless, Donald Trump, who's never met a conspiracy theory he doesn't immediately believe in, has used his claim to justify invoking the Alien Enemies Act, all right, which has led to some pretty terrible things throughout our history, including the Japanese internment camps in World War II. Okay. Now, he looked at that and said, "Ooh, I could do that. Yeah, let's do it." Now, when it comes to Venezuelan immigrants, he's been saying that President Maduro's government and Tren de Agra are coordinating to invade America. That's right. Now, a redacted memo from the National Intelligence Council, however, found absolutely no indication that this was actually happening. Because, of course, right? Now, they did allegedly find, though, that there were some mid to low-level Venezuelan officials that may have had some ties to the gang for, some financial gain. Okay, I don't know the veracity of this document, okay, on that. But here's what the memo reads. While Venezuela's permissive environment enables TDA to operate, the Maduro regime probably does not have a policy of cooperating with TDA and is not directing TDA movement and to end operations in the United States. Furthermore, most of the IC judges that intelligence indicating that regime leaders are directing or enabling TDA migration to the United States is not credible. Now, the National Intelligence Council helps coordinate the work of the nation's intelligence services, and its conclusions reflect the findings of the individual agencies like, the CIA, right? So with all those agencies and all of that, government power and money, they still couldn't find a damn thing. Not a dick dinero, okay? Nothing. Because it's not true. It's just fear-mongering from a man who is desperate to deport as many immigrants as humanly possible. Okay. Here's the thing, though. Obviously, people like myself do not like TDA. Okay. No, I don't like gang violence. I don't like gangs. I think they're dangerous. They've been linked to a series of kidnapping, extortion, and other crime. Okay. So, they're generally not the greatest people. Okay. That said, to be fair, I think there is a good chance that many of the members of these gangs did join simply to get out of the crushing poverty that exists among many Venezuelan expats. So, I mean, there is that, right? Now, I think the best way, and it's not just me, it's a lot of studies that show that one of the best ways to fight gang violence is to prevent the conditions that allow for gangs to form in the first place. That means having stable communities, strong safety nets, and good jobs that are available to the people there. Yes. So, economic conditions, material conditions are very, very important to preventing gangs from springing up. Okay? Now, while the assessment found no evidence of significant coordination between Maduro and the gang, it did note that FBI analysts had reason to believe some Venezuelan officials may have helped some gang members move to the U.S. and other countries to advance what they see as the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing governments and undermining public safety, according to the assessment. You have reason to believe, do you? Well, what's your reason? Okay, where's the evidence there? There isn't any. But the reason that they have reason to believe is because Donald Trump said it. They stuck it right in there because Tulsi Gabbard does not want to get fired. Okay, that's it. A spokesperson for Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, rejected claims that the assessment contradicts the White House, because of course she's going to say that. Gabbard had also written on social media last month that her office, which oversees and coordinates the work of the nation's 18 intelligence agencies, fully supports the assessment that the foreign terrorist organization, TDA, is acting with the support of the Maduro regime, and thus subject to arrest, detention, and removal as alien enemies of the United States. But it literally does contradict. That's it. I mean, in the actual findings, okay, and not just the additional, stuck-in thing of, I have reason to believe. Well, I have reason to believe that the Trump administration is full of idiots and ass-kissers. That said, I actually do have some evidence of that. And all you have to do is just look at their actions. Okay? So, but that's more than what they're showing on this. All right? And again, there is direct evidence that contradicts them. But here's the thing. Donald Trump wants to abuse the Alien Enemies Act, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. However, there are two federal judges that have ruled that he cannot. District Court Judge Alvin K. Hellerstein in New York said on Tuesday, 1798 law cannot be used against TDA because it's not attacking the United States. TDA may be well engaged in narcotics trafficking, Hellerstein wrote, but that is a criminal matter, not an invasion or predatory incursion. Yeah. Facts matter. Okay. Now, pointing that out does not mean that we're in favor of criminal gangs. Okay. It just means that we're in favor of reality over fiction. Dealing with the reality means that you can actually try to, attempt to solve the problem. But the right, of course, does not want to solve this problem. They just want to make things up in order to justify their very lazy, racist policies. And when surprised, it doesn't solve the problem. They can then use the problem to run their re-election campaigns on. Because why solve a problem when you can just keep getting reelected by not solving it? And once you realize that, you realize that, oh, that pretty much is the Republican plan and has been for some time. DeSantis and his wife stole $10 million from Florida's Medicaid fund. Yeah, I have talked about that. I don't know if you have seen my reporting on that, but Florida, famous for defrauding the government, as always. Keeping it classy, Florida. Okay. Tulsi equals Cruella DeVille. Hide your puppies. Actually, you should hide your puppies from Christy Nome. But, just say. Okay. All right. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. I love that. That is a great Firefly reference there. I don't know why my brain kind of stumbled on that for a second there, because that was a good show, and it deserved more than one season. It did. Okay. Kids in Oklahoma are about to become not only massively uninformed, but intentionally propagandized. That's right. According to Judd Legum of Popular Info, who reported this last week, the state of Oklahoma will now be requiring that students be taught about President Donald Trump's debunked claims about the 2020 election. Not as a lesson on how to identify conspiracy theories and misinformation. Oh, no. Now, this will be an official component of the new social studies curriculum created by none other than Oklahoma Superintendent of Public Instruction, Ryan Walters. That's right. The new curriculum includes a section that requires students to analyze contemporary turning points of 21st century American society. That requirement includes the following: identifying discrepancies in the 2020 elections results by looking at graphs and other information, including the sudden halting of ballot counting in select cities and key battleground states, the security risks of mail-in balloting, sudden batch dumps, that's right,
Dumps.
an unforeseen record of number of voters, and the unprecedented contradiction of bellwether county trends. Wow. Walters claims the purpose of this section is to teach students to think for themselves, really, and not be spoon-fed left-wing propaganda. That's right. In order to fight the left's the propaganda, otherwise known as facts, we're going to give you our own propaganda. Yeah. And yes, it is propaganda. Remember, Fox News had made a lot of this same disinformation leading up to the election. They were forced to pay $787 million to Dominion Voting Systems for those lies. I'm pretty sure, though, that is not going to be included in that lesson. All right. Well, once again, though, this really illustrates how it's projection with these people accuse the other side of doing what you want to do. Okay? So, and that's it. According to Walters, there are legitimate concerns about the integrity of the 2020 election that were raised by millions of Americans in 2020. And they were all wrong. They just were. I mean, it's a fallacy to say that, well, look how many people believe in this. I mean, it must be true. No, that is a fallacy. Look, there were no discrepancies in the 2020 election results that come even close to validating any of the claims that Donald Trump and his cronies made in the, about the results. There were no sudden halting of ballot counting in key states. In fact, I do remember one person attempting to, stop the count in certain places. I wonder who that was. Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm guessing that will also not be in Oklahoma's lesson plan. I mean, as far as some of the counting taking, time in states, obviously, yes, it takes time to count all the ballots. And look, in some of these states, election officials were legally prohibited from counting early ballots in advance. Okay? Mail-in balloting, their claim on that is wrong. Obviously, it's safe and secure. There have been states that have used it for decades with no problem. As for the dumps,
Big, massive dumps.
they happen in every election. That's right. They also impact both parties and are not by themselves a sign of fraud. Now, talking about the record turnout in 2020, what was that due to? the pandemic and other factors. Yeah, people turned out because they were upset what Donald Trump did, crashing the economy and COVID, telling people to inject bleach and stick light bulbs up their bums. Turns out, yeah, people were like, oh man, this guy's an idiot. I don't understand what happened from then to the next 4 years. Yes, persistent and stubborn greedflation. I get that. But, you know, people were apparently like, no, let's give this idiot who told me to inject bleach another 4 years. Oh, dear God. But, oh, and finally, the traditional bellwether counties are actually now more conservative than the nation as a whole, so there is nothing wrong there. Okay? Look, the fact is, Donald Trump lost in 2020, and he has made it all of our problem. Okay? The fragile ego of one man has had so many detrimental effects already, and now it's going to have an impact on the youth of Oklahoma. Okay? They're going to be even more disadvantaged now because they're living in a completely different reality. When they get to college, if they get to college, oh boy, it's going to be a lot to deprogram these people. Okay? And this, by the way, all comes at a cost of $33 million to the state of Oklahoma. Yeah. Now, could they have actually stopped this from happening? Yes, they could have, but they didn't. The chairman of the Oklahoma Senate Education Committee, Adam Pugh, did attempt by filing a resolution that would have sent the curriculum back to the Oklahoma State Board of Education for further review. Because it turns out that the members of this Board of Education were asking for review. They didn't have enough time to actually look at the 400 pages of changes that Walters was trying to make. Now, that resolution, unfortunately, did not receive a vote. Why? Because of threats from Moms for Liberty. That group sent letters to the Republicans in the legislature. In it, they praised the new curriculum as, quote-unquote, truth-filled, anti-woke, and unapologetically conservative. Well, at least one of those things is kind of true. This is pure conservative delusion, okay? That's it. But the important thing is they delivered a warning saying, in the last few election cycles, grassroots conservative organizations have flipped seats across Oklahoma by holding weak Republicans accountable. If you choose to side with the liberal media, you know, and facts, and make backroom deals with Democrats to block conservative reform, i.e. propaganda, you will be next. Well, there it is, primary threats. You better support our lies, or we're going to come after your job. And they will, by the way. They have and they will. But that's not the only reason, of course. But it did help. Now, Walters also apparently had used some deceptive practices to jam this through. In fact, Legum reports that Walters did not send the new standards with his addition to the members of the board until 4 p.m. the day before the board's 9:30 a.m. meeting, which effectively gave members not enough time to read these new standards, which again, 400 pages, okay? Some of the members later on said that they didn't even realize the new standards were different from the earlier version that they had previously reviewed. So last minute additions shoving this in. Walters not only made sure that the board couldn't read the new standards ahead of time, he also claimed that he had massive public comment support, okay, but didn't show any evidence of that because, of course, right? He also apparently had included right-wing activists on the committee that reviewed the social studies standards. His committee included Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, Dennis Prager, co-founder of PragerU, and right-wing media personalities Steve Deese and David Barton. Only 3 out of the 10 people involved in this committee even lived in Oklahoma. So this is all coming from outside massively right-wing organizations with the sole purpose of, or goal, propagandizing your kids with right-wing propaganda, right-wing lies. That's it. This is what's going on. And the reason that it's important to talk about is, look, I mean, it's pretty obvious what's going on here in Oklahoma. And I think Republicans across the country want to do the same thing in other states. That's it. Because they realize that their only chance of staying in power and staying relevant is to propagandize the youth. It requires it. They do not have pro-young people policies. All their policies mainly benefit rich people and corporations, not young people. They actually hurt young people. So they have to lie. So they have to get you young. In order to raise good conservative voters, they got to get them young. They got to get them young when they're in school, when they're, I wouldn't say ignorant, but when they're naive and believe the things that people teach them. And so that's exactly what they're doing in Oklahoma, teaching kids the opposite of facts, lies, in order to turn them into good little conspiracy theory believing conservative voters. It is just absolutely abhorrent and disgusting that this is happening. Good news for the NC Supreme Court election. I did talk about that. It was actually one of the segments that I did yesterday. But that is great news. Okay. Last story here for y'all. Okay. A state official in New York State is facing charges for shooting a black DoorDash driver in the back as he was running away. John J. Riley III is being charged with first-degree assault, criminal possession of a firearm, and second-degree criminal possession of a weapon. On May 2nd, around 9:50 p.m., a DoorDash driver who was black was trying to make a last delivery. Okay, he got lost, which happens. After losing his GPS capability, he had stopped at several homes to ask residents for directions so that he could finish his DoorDash order. Okay, so now I've done that before. I have stopped and asked people for directions, or I have asked people for help, sometimes late at night. I mean, one time I remember coming home from work in my car and it threw the alternator belt. Okay, I had to stop and ask for help because my car was just running out of battery and it would shut off. So yeah, I had to stop and ask for help. It was late in the winter time and it was dark. So I needed my headlights. Okay, so I had to stop and I had to ask for help. Thankfully, I was never shot, but I'm also not black. Okay, so that's really the important factor here. Okay, if I were black, I probably would be dead, or at least injured, or something terrible would have happened. Okay, that's the reality. Now, in doorbell surveillance video obtained by News 12 Westchester, the victim is seen standing on the porch of one home saying, quote, "I have DoorDash. My phone is broken. I need help." Police say that Riley told the DoorDash driver to get off his property before firing multiple shots at the victim as he attempted to leave in his vehicle, striking the victim once in the back, causing serious physical injury. Dude did not even give the driver a proper chance to get off his property before just going into rapid fire mode. I mean, that, like, what's going through this person's mind as he's just sitting there, spray and pray, okay, for a DoorDash driver that happened to be black on his property. I mean, that's insane. An Orange County spokesperson told the New York Times the victim required emergency surgery for injuries that are serious, but not at this time expected to be fatal. Thank goodness for that. I mean, look, the man was just trying to do his job, and he gets shot at. According to news outlets, the 24-year-old man whose information or identity is not public, he had recently moved to a neighboring town from West Africa, speaks French, and was studying English at SUNY Orange in Middleton. He had been working for DoorDash for about a month, so it kind of makes sense that he got lost. Okay, yes, he would get lost because he doesn't know the area very well. That's completely understandable. All right. Now, he did stop at our house, one homeowner told News 12. I thought maybe my wife ordered DoorDash. He didn't seem to speak good English, on the account of being from West Africa. Now, the victim's family said that his phone had died before the shooting, so he had driven himself to a gas station to charge it and to call the police after being shot. A store clerk then called the police, but the victim left and drove himself home, where first responders met him. From there, they took him to the hospital. All right. As for Riley, he was elected to highway superintendent for the town of Chester back in 2021. Police say that he is also a federally licensed firearms dealer because, of course, he is. State police say that the DoorDash driver was in the wrong place at the wrong time and are investigating whether or not the shooting qualifies as a hate crime, according to News 12 Westchester. New York State Police Captain Joseph Kolick told WABC that, quote, there's nothing to indicate that the victim had any nefarious intentions. He was just out there doing his job, trying to make a food delivery. Yes, but you know what? The racists do not care. They see a black person, and it's like the fear and hatred just takes over. I mean, this is very similar to a 2023 shooting in Hebron, New York, where a 66-year-old homeowner opened fire and fatally shot a 20-year-old passenger in a car that had mistakenly entered his driveway. Once again, I have turned around in people's driveways before. I have not been shot. Not been shot at. Nobody cared. All right. But apparently, do that if you're black or minority and you're in one of these areas where apparently there's a lot of guns. Well, I mean, apparently that's what happens now. Okay. Now, you also had Ralph Yarl, by the way, who was a black teenager who was shot twice by an 86-year-old named Andrew Lester. Ralph Yarl's crime was going to the wrong home while trying to pick up his younger siblings in Kansas City. Yes, which is not really a crime here. Not really a crime. I feel like, though, these incidences, these situations are a result of the constant social media, local news, fear-mongering about crime. Now, why do I say that? What about the racism, right? Well, the thing is these news reports always tend to link back to black people or immigrants as people who are doing the crime. This man, this DoorDash driver, was both a black immigrant. And so, yeah, like pretty much the worst combination that you could be in this country. It'd be worse, even worse if if they were a trans person. Okay, imagine trans black and an immigrant. Oh my God, in America, oh boy. I mean, that's what's going on. Okay, so yes, we live in a country where we have deeply racist people that have lots of guns. They will shoot you for making the mistake of coming to their door. I wish this was not the case. But here we are. It is not safe for you if you're a minority, if you're an immigrant in this country anymore. And again, it is because we have a huge problem. It goes beyond Donald Trump. It goes beyond the Republican Party. It really has to do a lot with the culture that we have, the culture of fear, the culture of hatred, the culture of racism that is prevalent in our society, the fears of immigrants, fears of black people that are scaring the crap out of suburban white people. I wish I knew how to solve this problem, but what I can do, the only thing that I feel like I can do, is to continue to bring awareness to it so that, I don't know, maybe some people can realize that, hey, it turns out that these black DoorDash drivers are just regular people trying to get by, and that, maybe we shouldn't shoot them. It seems like such a ridiculous thing to ask that maybe we don't shoot random people for coming up to our door. But then I forget, oh, right, I live in America where shooting people is apparently normal. We have a deep sickness in our country, a lot of little sicknesses that are adding up to just a massively terrible, cancer in our culture and leading to situations like this that happen far, far too often. Okay. Or a tourist, yeah. Hate point blank. Yep. Reminds me of Philando Castile getting shot by a coward before he can get a word in. Yeah, and Philando Castile was a legal gun owner too. And I was told by the Republicans that, oh, if you're a legal gun owner, you don't have anything to worry about. We're trying to protect your rights. Where was the NRA on that one? Silent. 100% silent. They don't care. They do not give a damn. Because of course, right? All right. So, that's all I got for you today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Please consider becoming a channel member or a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. And thank you, Therese, for upgrading your membership from level 2 to level 3. Really, really appreciate that. Go to our Patreon page. I am considering doing a Zoom Q&A, perhaps for patrons, for members only. If that is something that you are interested in seeing, then let me know, because I'm trying to figure out ways to help increase membership, to get some of y'all to sign up, to help out the channel. A little bit of a perk, something to spur people to want to sign up and support independent progressive media. Again, I need your help more than ever. I need people to sign up and support the channel, because things are not good in the lefty media space right now. And so, yes, I do need your support, and I need it bad. So I'm just going to be honest with you on that one. So, yes, give me some ideas and what you would like to see in exchange for that support. Anything that's, I guess, I don't know, just, things like that Q&A, like a Zoom meeting or something like that, with supporters. That's stuff that I would love to do if you're all interested in that. So anyway, thank you for watching the stream. Please like and share if you haven't already, and send me some ideas. And I will see if I can get them done. All right, everybody. Thank you. Love you all. Please take care of yourselves, your communities, your families. And remember, of course, change, it begins with you at the bottom. Average people getting together to protect each other, to protect the most vulnerable, and to really build up communities for a better progressive future. All right, everybody. Thank you all, and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow. Love you all.